Welcome. Calling the El Monte City School District Board of Education meeting to order today, October 17th, 2022, beginning with roll call. Beginning with Mrs. Cobian,
Present.
Mrs. Mendez Garcia,
Present.
Mrs. Rivas,
Present.
and Mr. Segrist.
Present.
And with us present. We will move on with our flag salute, and let's have Mr. Segrist lead us in the flag salute this evening.
I get to talk about, oh, here's the microphone over here. It's good to always have the microphone next to you.
Flag salute.
Please put your hand over your heart. If you're a military, former veteran, you can salute this way. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you, Mr. Segrist.
You're welcome.
And moving on this evening with the items of interest on tonight's agenda, beginning with school safety, with a school safety update. And I can pass this over to Dr. Garcia.
President Rivas and governing board members, good afternoon. It is my pleasure to actually turn the microphone over to Mr. Jose Herrera, who's going to share with us an update on our school safety.
All right, members of the governing board and members of the public, very excited to share an update with the board on school safety. We know this is top of mind for our parents, knowing that school safety is always a priority here in the Monte City School District. Given recent events that have happened in the past few months, it's something that's becoming even more top of mind for our parents and all of our stakeholders. So like it says up there, we're going to do whatever it takes, whatever is necessary to guarantee the safety of children in school, right? Something that we don't take lightly, the fact that kids get dropped off each day and they're in our custody. We want to make sure that they're safe from the moment we receive them to the moment we return them back to their parents. And also we talked about some initiatives that also even goes beyond the school day, right? Making sure we're monitoring that there are safe practices when our kids are on devices, that are district-issued devices at home. So with that, I'll get into the presentation. School safety is something that here in the Monte City School District, it's embedded within our culture here in the Monte City School District. We have strong safety systems in place. I'll talk about some of those initiatives that are existing initiatives that we have in our district, some new upcoming initiatives that we plan to roll out this year. I think something that we're going to really focus on this year is making sure that we have a renewed focus on promoting the safety measures that we have in place, right? We get a lot of parent square messages and social media posts on all the great things that are happening in the Monte City School District, in the classroom, outside the classroom. But I think one of the areas that we need to focus on some more so that there's a heightened awareness in our community amongst parents is some of those safety measures, right? So I'm sure you'll be seeing a lot of great shakeout social media posts happening this week and other things that we'll be making our parents aware of. So communicating our safety initiatives out to our parents will be the focus this year. Like I said, we have strong safety systems in place. Making sure that our stakeholders are aware of those safety systems that we have in place, I think will go a long way. As we look at the 5 layers of school safety, it's more than technology or just putting a piece of software in place or even the way the facility is made up, right? So safety is a very complex topic, right? Schools are, for lack of a better term, soft targets, right? They're not military bases, right? We also don't want students or parents feeling that they're coming onto campus and they're walking through a TSA checkpoint. So we want to make sure that there's that fine balance that we meet on our schools, campuses, so that they're welcoming, yet at the same time still very safe, right? So when we look at the 5 layers of safety, there is the emergency management part of that, and we'll be seeing some of that in action later in the board agenda when our school safety plans are approved by our Board of Education. Staff training, making sure that we have the appropriate staff trained in various measures that would contribute to school safety. Exercises, so our safety drills, I'll talk a little bit about what that looks like and the frequency later in the presentation. Making sure that we have hardware and software systems in place to help amplify school safety measures on our campuses. And then I think most importantly is positive school culture, right? There's a statistic that is later in the presentation, but it's very, very telling. 4 out of 5 active shooter situations, 4 out of 5 times the active shooter shared their plans with somebody before they actually acted on that, right? So making sure that we have a culture of if you see something, say something, right? A lot of the campaigns that our schools have rolled out, they've always been in place, but more of a focus now, even more so during the pandemic with anti-bullying awareness campaigns and things like that, right? I think that's really helping to strengthen the culture at our school sites. The introduction of counselors and a greater focus on mental health support systems, I think is going a long way in the El Monte City School District because some of the challenges that happen in our schools are as a result of things that are potentially happening outside of the school. And we want to make sure that we have a strong culture where students feel safe enough to share information with staff members, with others, so that we can hopefully set them up for success and have a great culture there. So as we look at reimagining school safety, right, this is an area that looks very different now in 2022 than it did 20 years ago or 50 years ago, right? So when we look at the safety in El Monte City School District, what systems do we currently have in place that make our schools safe, right? And I'll talk about some of those measures that we have in place so that the board is aware and the members here and the public are aware of what we have in place. As we look at how these will evolve going forward, right? You know, we're also aware of the fact that there are new challenges that are facing schools, right? And we want to make sure that we can evolve and have a nimble response and provide the resources to our parents and our staff to be able to continue to foster safe schools. Now, as we look to transform how we deliver instructional services, right, as a result of the pandemic, right, the same thing is true for the area of school safety, right? The challenges have changed. As we look at our facility master plan, what's exciting about where we're at right now with our facility master plan is some of these safety improvements will come about through the master plan. And as we're going through that exercise and getting feedback from our stakeholders, we'll take that information and the feedback and develop a comprehensive approach to make sure that we can bolster our school security from the way our facilities are set up, right? So here are some of the safety measures that we have in place. We have, from a technology and hardware standpoint, if we look at cameras, we have over 900 security cameras across the districts. As you walk onto any of our district properties or school sites, you'll notice that we have that TV up in front in the front office with all the cameras. So it's one thing to have cameras on the campus. It's another thing to make sure that that there's visibility. And so having the TV up in front in each of our front offices, they can see all the cameras, and at a given point, if a school needs to go on lockdown or whatever the case is, they can see you know, all areas of the campus from one central location. Our school buses are equipped with interior cameras, which is a great feature. We also have something called Catapult, which is an emergency alert notification system that our staff and our school sites use to initiate lockdowns, to share information among staff in the event of a lockdown or an incident if it were to arise. It also notifies district staff so that we can provide additional support and be there to support them in the event of an emergency. With the implementation of our GoGuardian system, I want to say now it's been maybe 1.5 years or 2 years that we've had that. That's our internet filtering solution that we have. And there's something on there called Beacon Alerts that we added a few years ago. So when students are searching keywords that we've identified as harmful, right? Those alerts get routed to the school administrators, our counseling team, and we follow up as needed. So for example, if a child were to type into their Chromebook, I want to harm myself or something along those lines, right? We have filters set up behind the scenes where those alerts go to the school sites and the schools then follow up as needed to provide support. And it serves also as an internet filtering system on our devices. So as we went one-to-one with our devices during the pandemic, these devices are now traveling home with students offsite. And we want to make sure that they're not only safe on our campuses, but also when they're offsite, that they're not accessing websites that they shouldn't be accessing, right? So the filtering system continues to work on the device when it's offsite. And something that is emerging recently that we're dealing with. So if you remember early in the presentation, I said our instructional delivery method is evolving, right? So is the way we approach, right, school safety, right? So vaping is probably something that wasn't an issue a decade ago or a couple decades ago, but now it's something that is popping up in schools, right? So we're piloting some vaping monitor detection devices at some of our schools. The way they work is they detect an air imbalance. For example, if they're installed in a bathroom, where most of the time these vaping incidents obviously don't happen out on the playground, right? The notification happens, right, immediately to the school administrators on campus so they can follow up. So those are some technology that we're using, and we're hopeful that we can expand out to the rest of our schools, right? Just so that when kids are on our campus, right, we make sure that we can have that culture of safety. So some other safety measures that we have in place, all of our staff members, all of our volunteers, all of our contractors that come on to or set foot on campus, we have fingerprint background checks that occur on them. We have a district-approved communication platform. So an emerging threat or trend, unfortunately, in school districts the past, I would say, few years or so, you're seeing it more and more in the headlines in the news, is sexual abuse and molestation claims, right? And so the Parent Square is not only a great system where it unifies our communication, but also from a parent standpoint, they know that communication is on an approved platform between the parent and the school, right? And so this also serves a purpose of when we need to notify parents in an emergency, we can quickly send out an alert via phone or text. And so that's one of our safety measures that we have in place, and also it improves communication on the district's side of it. All of our buses are equipped with child safety alert systems. This was actually as a result of a law that was passed a few years ago, and all of our buses are in compliance with that. It requires the bus driver to go to the back of the bus and press a device before they can shut off the bus vehicle. For the purpose to make sure that the sweeps are being done, there's no children that are left behind on a bus, right? So radio telecommunications is something that we have in place here in the Monte City School District as well. At our school sites here at the district office, we actually have a couple repeaters throughout the district, one at the central kitchen and two more at other parts throughout the community. And it allows us to communicate amongst the schools up to the district office in the event of an emergency. We will be actually practicing the radio communication devices that we have on Thursday when we do the Great Shakeout. All 14 schools will be participating in the Great Shakeout earthquake drill on Thursday morning. We also have a single point of campus entry. I know that's something that, in years past, that wasn't the case many generations ago, and schools have evolved with the times, right? So making sure that we have a single point of entry. And I know there's some challenges there, because I know sometimes parents like to, walk their kids to the classroom, but we know with challenges that schools are facing with safety-wise, we have gone in that direction in recent years. The government emergency telecommunication service is something as well that we have in place. It prioritizes our calls for our wireless networks in the event of an emergency, right? So if the big one were to hit or if an emergency were to happen, a lot of times these cell towers get bombarded because everyone's trying to send text messages and call their loved ones and things like that. So our district staff members, our leadership team has the approval from the Office of Emergency Services where we can have priority in those situations where our communication, our phone calls, our text messages will be prioritized in those situations. As we look at other safety measures, I think what we see most often happening in the schools is these safety measures where we see the anti-bullying campaigns, we see the Red Ribbon Week, Kindness Month, Coffee with a Cop. We're going to talk about fentanyl and vaping, parent education, right? So those are the type of resources that it's not only just about fortifying your your campuses to make sure that you have, appropriate fencing and cameras and a single point of entry, and making sure that we participate in the drills, and making sure that we have a culture in place so that we can invest in mental health, right? And the fact that we have added counselors and social workers at all of our schools is going a long way. I highlighted there one of the campaigns at Gidley School called Project Unity, but we have many, many campaigns that happen at all of our schools, too many to keep track of. It seems like every week there's a different campaign going on at a different school that's promoting kindness or anti-bullying, whatever the case may be. We've implemented the BAS screener here in our district recently, which helps us to identify potentially some of those students that may have elevated risk levels, where we can step in and support them in that regard. And as our implementation of MTSS moves along, that's something that just kind of is another layer that helps us in the area of school safety. And the Jeff Seymour Family Center is something as well. I think that's a great model that we have in place. We hear a lot about the state level community schools, and I think we have that model in place here with our Jeff Seymour Family Center, and each of our 14 schools are community schools, right, where parents know to come to us, and they feel as if they can trust us enough to come to us when they're in need, right? So they trust us a lot, and we don't we value that trust that they put in the schools. Some other safety measures that we have in place that are happening within the school day is things like digital citizenship curriculum that all of our students receive while they're here in the Monte City School District, so they can be safe while online, right? Because we know these days that there's plenty of challenges and safety issues that happen online. So we're training our students at a very young age on what to look for, right? Because when we hand a device to a child, it's very different than back in the day when it was a textbook, right? And so there's different challenges that come about with giving a hotspot or a Chromebook to a child. With our counselors, we're having more of a focus on social emotional lessons to make sure that we can embed that even more into the instructional day. And then some of the things trainings that we offer to our staff and our volunteers and other stakeholders that are frequently on our campuses is a mandated reporter training. We also have suicide prevention training and resources that we offer up to our stakeholders and our staff. Now, as we look at increased counselors and social workers on our campuses, and we look at the master plan, right, it's very exciting because how we look at schools is going to change over time, right? And perhaps looking towards the future and looking at expansion of spaces on our campuses, whether we call it wellness centers or spaces on campuses that are calming places for students, where, that I think that is an area that looks a little different and will look a little different as we move forward into the coming years that perhaps our schools weren't set up for in years past. So our motto here in our safety plans that we'll be approving later tonight in the board agenda is be prepared. Safety doesn't happen by accident, and the objective of our school safety and emergency plans is to provide the maximum amount of safety and protection for our students and staff. No two emergencies are the same, right? Every emergency is slightly different, and so the safety plans are flexible enough so that they can be modified as needed. What we are doing this year is that we've unified our approach to our safety plan. So you'll notice that the safety plan template is the same template that all the schools utilize this year. And these schools tweaked certain parts of the plan that were specific to their schools. We did remove tactical information from the safety plans, for example, evacuation routes and things like that. There has been some recommendations from our insurance carrier to do that because there have been some situations, unfortunately, where individuals have pulled the fire alarm knowing that this is an area that will be crowded, right, because this is the evacuation route, and they've moved forward with some active shooter situations across other situations that have arisen. So for that reason, you'll notice the template is there, right? And it's the same template that all of our schools are using. If you have a substitute teacher that shows up to Cortada School, the next day they're subbing at Durfee School, the procedures are the same, right? So we're unifying all that to make sure that there's alignment across all 14 schools. We also consulted with El Monte Police Department in the development and review of the safety plan so that they're aware of what our safety plans look like. And it's information that our staff has been shared with our staff. So this gives a breakdown of some of the areas that the schools updated that are specific to their schools, and making sure that our local law enforcement agency officials are aware of what our safety plan procedures look like is important and it's key. And we had the opportunity to review that recently with them. And the hope is that as we move forward every year, we'll continue to refine these safety plans and make adjustments as needed so that all 14 schools can benefit from the updates. A requirement that schools need to comply with is safety drills, right? And we kind of go above and beyond. We hold monthly drills here at all of our schools. We are required to participate in certain drills, right, at the middle school levels, but because we have many K-8 schools, we just move forward with monthly drills at all schools. Combination of lockdowns, combination of lock-ins, right? Some of them require evacuations, fire drills, things like that. So we do also consider holding the drills at different times of the day because emergencies can happen at different times throughout the day, right? So I know it's probably not ideal to hold the drill in December, right, when it's already a tight month to begin with, and we have a lot of special celebrations happening, or in June potentially, but we make sure that we hold them monthly and also at different times of the year, right? So making sure that we hold some during summer school because we may have different leadership. Perhaps we may have a summer school assistant principal or principal leading at that site. So we want to make sure that they're aware of what the safety procedures are because incidents can happen any day, any month, at any school, right? So, and like it says there, safety does not happen by accident. We actually were talking about this earlier this morning in cabinet, and you know, our safety drills here at the district office, I think we need some improvement there. Are at the school sites, the staff, the students, they have it down, and here at the district office, I think because we have a lot of adults here, right? It's something that we're going to focus on because we don't do it as often. So it's something we're going to look at too to make sure that we bring some of those routines from the school sites here to the district office. Some initiatives that we have currently and we look to expand on going forward is bringing back our safety committee. So COVID somewhat put that on pause, but we have our first safety committee, which are monthly meetings that we have that we will be starting up on Wednesday. We're going to be covering a variety of topics and getting input from the school, from the district, so that we can bolster our school safety culture. Another thing that I mentioned earlier in the presentation is promoting our safety protocol with our parents. You know, it's an area that I think we could do a better job of promoting out to our parents so they're aware of the safety protocols that we have in place, all of the training, all the drills that we run. So that's something that we're going to be focusing on, updating our websites, making sure that we focus on areas like traffic safety, making sure that we provide parents with information on safe walking routes to and from school for those children that do walk to and from school, sharing the safety drill schedules with parents, and also something new that we will be tweaking through our safety committee is developing some drill notification communication templates that we can share with our parents so that when we are holding a practice drill, right, we're notifying parents in advance, right? It helps to increase the awareness of parents and they're aware, oh, my child's gonna participate in a safety drill next week, right, or later this week. And also when situations happen that we communicate that information as soon as possible to our families. We've had a couple of situations that have happened this year where schools have had to have gone on lockdown. And as soon as the lockdown is lifted, we've communicated that information through our parent square system directly to parents because these days, which is I think a little different than in years past or generations past, but if we don't communicate it to our parents, the kids have cell phones and they're texting their parents as to what happened, right? So we're making sure that we want to communicate facts to parents in the event of a lockdown or a drill emergency, but we also want to make sure that we have enough information to share with them so as not to cause panic. So that's something that we're developing some communication templates that we can share with our principals so that they're just more comfortable when those situations arise. They can quickly push that information out to parents. Some other safety initiatives that we're going to look at bolstering is additional staff training for all of our staff. And also looking at, I think, excited about the facility master plan and what that can do for safety improvement considerations. And we'll identify some challenges or focus areas that we can, as they relate to school safety on campus, that we can incorporate into some of the projects that we prioritize in our long-range facility master plan. Something else that we're going to be reviewing is our emergency equipment, making sure that we have adequate emergency supplies on hand at all of the school sites, making sure that all of our radios are functioning as appropriate. And that speaks to the importance of the safety drills, right? If you practice it, right, and that radio equipment's not working, or you found that the supplies that you were in need of were not there, better to come across that during a drill than for you to come across that scenario in a real life situation. So it speaks to the importance of these monthly drills. Also reviewing our cameras that we have. Like I said, we have over 900 cameras across the district. But are there areas on our campuses where there are blind spots, and do we need to expand our cameras that we currently have out there? And then this year we have a new property and liability insurance carrier that we are partnering with, and so we are bringing back quarterly inspections, safety inspections of all of our campuses, so we can have some reports and debrief after those quarterly inspections. We have a third party that can come in and give us some recommendations on areas we can focus on. Some other safety initiatives. These are, like I said, things are always evolving, and in schools we got to be almost 2 steps ahead of these risks that come up, right? So when we think about cybersecurity assessment, we have strong networks, knock on wood. We haven't had any data breaches or any hacks that have happened in our district. We all heard about the LAUSD cyber attack that happened a couple of weeks ago. Something that we're moving forward in the coming weeks is we're going to be in partnership with our liability insurance carrier. We're going to be partnering with a third-party trusted agency that will be doing a vulnerability scan of our networks, trying to almost hack our system from the outside and letting us know where the vulnerabilities are, right? So we're doing that in collaboration with our insurance carrier. Something else that we're looking at is multi-factor authentication, where when you log into your email address, you might, through a key fob or your phone, have to also verify that login, right? Most data breaches happen from the inside, right? A staff member shares some information or has a password that's compromised, and that's how these data breaches unfortunately happen. Something else that we are focusing on is providing student safety resources in the area of fentanyl. And so doing continued parent outreach to increase the awareness amongst our parents, providing information to them. We've had a lot of information that we've shared out in recent weeks to our parents. And then we're also exploring introducing a Narcan program implementation here in our schools. And we're looking at what it would take to get that up and running, and the staff training that would go along with that. So we're working closely, and we hope to bring more information back to the board at a later date on that. The fun part is our social media challenges and our online threats that have emerged, right? So we continue to provide outreach to parents in that regard, whether it's the one chip challenge, or whether just how to resources that we can share with our schools and how to deal with online threats that are anonymous, right? So that's something that we are continuing to focus on, and it's that's I guess the new frontier, right? That we're going to need to figure out the best way to approach these, right? So that is something that our safety committee is going to really be focusing on, so that we can set our schools up for success when these anonymous or online threats come in, so we can provide the appropriate response. And something else that we're excited about is we have health program education specialist positions that we are funding out of our tobacco grant initiative that we received a couple years ago. The pandemic kind of put that implementation on pause, but we've started that earlier this school year, and in partnership with some familiar faces, right, that used to be working in our school through EMPD. They are doing parent presentations on the dangers of drugs and vaping and the trending drugs. And so we're doing classroom presentations as well as parent presentations. So that's something that we're kicking off this month. Something that we're going to look to that we don't currently have in place is making sure that we have some sort of platform where students, parents, community members can anonymously report information, right? Sometimes we get hit with vandalism on the weekends, right? When we don't have a presence on our campuses. We have a security team that are maintenance staff, department staffs where they do regular door checks, right, on a regular basis over the weekends, on non-student days. And we come across some vandalism that happens at our sites, right? So making sure that we have an anonymous type reporting platform where whether you're a neighbor that lives by a school and you see something, you can report it. If you're a student, you want to report something, but for whatever reason you want to stay anonymous, or a community member, they can report that information. It speaks to the culture that we have in our school district, where we build those relationships, and students, if they're aware of things, they come and report that to their parents and to the staff on campus. But just having that additional layer of the ability to report things anonymously, right, is something that we want to provide to as a resource here in the El Monte City School District. And targeted campaigns with parents and students, right? There was a slide earlier that spoke to all of the kindness campaigns and Project Unity and anti-bullying campaigns and all the things that we've introduced, right? And I've always been part of the school district here in El Monte City School District, but making sure that we just continue with that, right? Because that's an unfortunate statistic there, but in 4 out of 5 school shootings, the attacker told people their plans ahead of time, right? And we want to make sure that we can do our part to make sure that we intervene, right, early, right? Especially if we see that there's information out there. Hopefully that's being shared with us. And, it's great to see the investments that we made recently in the area of mental health supports. Now, I know there's been a lot that our community has gone through during the pandemic, and I think teaching empathy and empowering students to kind of to end social isolations is a big initiative for us as we come out of the pandemic. Reconnecting with students and reconnecting with our families, right? It's great to see a lot of more in-person, just kind of going back to normal routines. A lot of the events at schools are happening on campus, right? This truly feels like the first normal school year. I know we had the kids back last year, but this feels like, this is like the first year that is almost comparable to pre-pandemic. So we want to make sure that we continue to foster a positive and safe school culture. And I always go back to Dr. Garcia's and the El Monte City School District's theme from a couple years ago about relationships matter, right? And when we think about school safety, we can talk about, putting buzzers at the front of the schools to make sure that, or we can put taller gates and all that good stuff, right? Add more cameras, but I think it starts with making sure that we have a safe campus where it's a great culture, and kids and staff feel really good about stepping foot onto our campuses on a daily basis, because then they hopefully will then take that fun and that enthusiasm back, right, outside of the school day, right? So those are that's the update we have this evening regarding school safety. If there's any questions from the board, I'd be happy to take them at this time. And later in the board meeting, you'll be voting on the school safety plans, which we take annually to the board.
Thank you, Mr. Herrera. What a fantastic presentation. My fellow board members, any questions? Come on.
I'll go first. Thank you so much for that comprehensive information that shows us not just, there's so many aspects of safety that we have to be looking at. One question I just want to follow up on the GoGuardian internet filtering system regarding when students say type in something alarming, right, and it's after hours. What does that process look like in terms of how the administrators notify? Do they get that notification? And then again, what are those steps when it is on a Friday night or a Saturday night?
Yeah, and we can bring back more defined information on that, but there is a very rapid response to that. There's emails, I believe there's also text notifications that go out, and the information gets filtered down to the lowest level possible so that there's a lot of an awareness. District staff gets notified, school staff gets notified as well, and there's an immediate response to that. I'm not going to say that if it happens at 2 a.m. that a staff member is picking up the phone and making a phone call at that point, but it's happening within. It's a priority when they get those alerts, right? And that is something that is new for our staff, because it's like opening up Pandora's box, right? It's something that we didn't necessarily have that level of visibility on in the past, and so we're also adjusting to, the impact on the workload, because we're seeing some of those come in, it's like you're opening up the floodgates, right? When that's something that we didn't have the ability to view in years past. So I wouldn't even say within 24 hours we respond. It's a much quicker response because you know, a lot of times. You know, if you see something that's, you know, a student's trying to cause harm, we're not going to wait 24 hours to try to respond to that. So I don't know if Dr. Garcia has something you want to add to that.
I do. I recall when we were first entering into this contract, that was one of the things that we had a very intentional, explicit discussion about the tree, right, and who gets notified. And so multiple people get notified so that, you know, it crosses through many sets of eyes. And it all depends on the nature of the situation. And I will say that many of the times when kids are asked about some of the things that they've searched, they'll say, I was just joking, I was just looking, I was curious. And even then, we have a process for follow through just to make sure that they're seeing a counselor, parents are involved, and so forth. So it's a pretty extensive process. When we first added the filter, we learned that it was really important to have multiple people so that you know, we can really follow through and make sure that we're following up with the parents. So our coordinator of child welfare, manager of child welfare receives those emails, as well as our director of student support services, the principals, assistant principals, and then depending on the nature of the situation, that's who actually does the follow-up. And there have been a few times where we go directly to El Monte PD to do a home wellness check.
Okay, no, thank you, because same thing, when we launched in our district, we definitely had to go through that process of what happens when it's the weekend and who responds, and then knowing that there are some limitations because we don't have access to the student, so thank you for that.
Yeah, we did resolve that, and again, I was very proud, I just said this, but I'll repeat it, just that follow-up, right? What happens when there's just a curiosity for a web search, but we really want to make sure that, you know, we can assist that child in understanding and then move on, and always, of course, with the consent and the support of the parents.
You know, one area I forgot to mention on the topic of safety drills, it's a like I said, school safety is a very complex topic. We want kids and staff and parents to feel very welcome when they're, you know, approaching our campuses and walking onto campus. So there's also, as we look at the facility master plan, making sure that we have, you know, improvements that are going to bolster the safety of the campus, but at the same time, you know, not make it look so much as if they're entering a military base or something to that effect, right? So, and something that schools are very much grappling with, unfortunately, because it's we're seeing more and more of it, is the type of drills that we run. So there are districts out there, I'm sure you've seen it, across the state of California that are starting to look more closely at active shooter specific drills. We are an elementary school district, and that is an area that is, you know, the million-dollar question is, does it cause more trauma to run students through that type of drill? Or, you know, so that's something that we do have lockdown measures in place as a safety drill, right? And, you know, we've seen it firsthand. A couple weeks ago, we're on campus at one of our sites, and an individual happened to jump a fence and get onto campus, and it happened in front of some students and supervision assistants. And this is where the delegation of decision-making to the lowest level possible goes a long way, right? Supervision assistant initiated the lockdown, right? Brought the students into the closest area, right? And, you know, we work with local law enforcement to make sure that everything was clear before we lifted the lockdown. Just happened to be somebody that hopped the fence and made their way onto campus, and maybe they're on campus for a few seconds, right? But we did see that, you know, when we lifted the lockdown, there were students that were exiting, you know, certain classrooms with tears, and it's you know, so it does create a lot of trauma for students when they go through that. And you're seeing more of it happen in colleges and high school levels and middle schools, right? It's just a result of, unfortunately, the times that we currently live in. Right now, our approach is we practice safety drills, we practice lockdown drills, and that's something that we'll continue to look at how we continue to evolve, right? Because we don't want to cause trauma in the lives of our staff or students, right, or parents, right, in that regard. So it's a very complex topic, and there's no solution, right? There's no one right answer, right? So we're doing it through a multi-layered approach here at the El Monte City School District on how we approach school safety.
Okay. Mrs. Cobian?
Yeah, thank you. Just again, thank you for the full presentation. I really like the multi-layers and all the different areas that we're covering. And just really appreciate, how all the priority of safety. The question, just a couple of kind of communication related questions I had. One related to Go Guardian. I think just making sure that teachers and parents know that it's not the full measure of protection for their kids online, that it doesn't replace active in-person kind of monitoring. I know firsthand from some experiences that kids are very creative in finding ways to get around those kinds of programs. And so I think just always being aware that, it is not the full solution. It's part of that as well. So
Correct.
anyway, just kind of wanted to share that comment. And then also kind of a question about the communication protocols for kids communicating with teachers. I know students all have Gmail accounts, there's Google Classroom, there's Parent Square. And I know, so the Gmail and the Parent Square are somewhat separate. And so I'm wondering if there's a way to kind of integrate that so that as a parent, I can see what my kid is, sending to the teacher and the communication there without necessarily having to log on to their account. So I know that it's kind of always evolving in the way that we use the technology. But I just know there's, from scouting experience, there's some protocols in place about if a child is emailing an adult, they always have two adults on the thread. So the parent and whoever they're reaching out to. And so I think there's some areas, maybe we can look at just for that extra layer of caution about the communication of students with adults.
Yeah, duly noted, and that's one of the areas that our safety committee, the ask is that we come up with a master plan, right? We're calling it a safety master plan of, what the needs are, right? And prioritizing which areas we can focus on first to make sure that we have, that's an appropriate one that we can focus on to make sure that we have that policy and we communicate it off to parents and also amongst staff members. And then to your earlier point about making sure that, the Go Guardian doesn't capture everything, I would say that our schools are doing an awesome job of holding parent workshops, right, all the time on different topics, right? And so it's probably something I didn't focus on too much today in the presentation, but the amount of resources that our community liaisons or other support staff at the schools are holding as far as parent workshops and, sharing information with parents on how they can better support their child's learning experience it goes a long way, right? If we've even heard at times that, we're over communicating, but we'd much rather be accused of over communicating than under communicating as a district.
Yeah, no, definitely much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Cobian. Any others? Mr. Segrist.
I'd like to congratulate you on a wonderful product. This is amazing, and I love the fact that you use "Be Prepared" from the Boy Scouts as your motto. There's one area that I'm concerned about, and that's called parking. I went by one of our schools today around 11 o'clock when the children were getting out of kindergarten, and there were two cars double parked. I would suggest we need signage along the streets saying no double parking, no U-turns, and also a staff person should be out there monitoring that because that's super dangerous because children can go behind or in front of a parked car and who knows what's going to happen next. So I think we really need to work on that. But again, this is a wonderful document. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Segrist. If I can just make the distinction, we definitely have, our teachers are asked to do duties. Sometimes we call them meet and greets because they're opportunity to connect with those that are around you. But we do not have the jurisdiction on what happens on the streets. And so our teachers, our staff, principals, we cannot direct the traffic. It's really the jurisdiction of the city of El Monte. So we are working with El Monte Police Department to make sure that they come and monitor, drop-offs and pickups because we are aware of this behavior. And we know that we have to work collaboratively with the city to make sure that, there's traffic safety that's presented to the community. Because it is really something of concern that we're aware of.
Well, I do have a friend who's recently saw someone being ticketed in front of one of our schools for
Yes.
doing just that thing. And I heard about one district where a school purchased an out-of-service police car and parked it, and it really helped monitor traffic. Thank you.
That's a good idea. Black and whites, right? I'm kidding. But we are working with El Monte Police Department.
Thank you, Mr. Seegers. Tonight, do have a few questions in terms of our school safety initiatives and specifically on the health program education specialist. Who provides the parent presentations on the dangers of vaping and trending drugs?
So this is the grant that we received that Mr. Herrera had alluded to, and I think we've discussed it here. It was just such a wonderful grant to receive right before the pandemic, and fortunately, the Justice Department was able to extend that. And so a former SRO, Officer Quintana, is working by providing resources and presentations to families, and also will be going into classrooms. So instead of having these large-scale assemblies where we just talk about the do's and don'ts and the dangers, really small group, provide information for students, give students the opportunity to ask questions, and hopefully, we can really reach every single child in understanding the dangers of drug abuse.
So, and the only thing why I'm asking is because it does say parent presentations, and I was thinking that maybe I know that sometimes as a community we appreciate subject matter experts to come on board, right, and be part of those conversations, right? We have a resolution that included, for example, the American Lung Association, American Heart Association, American Academy of Pediatrics, where we can perhaps maybe invite them and to come on board and share, right, a few of what, right, those resources and their knowledge and expertise, what they've shared with other communities as well. So this is just a thought. And also our healthcare providers.
Absolutely.
Right? We have a USC Keck School of Medicine, LSU USC Medical Center, and of course, USC Arcadia Methodist now, right? So I just know that sometimes our community, and I know that our parents would really appreciate those subject matter experts to also be part of those conversations to answer questions, right, that sometimes we might not know.
Absolutely.
Also, in terms of the district-wide safety committee, who is part of this particular committee?
So it's site administrators and the combination of site administrators and district administrators, right? So that's the makeup of the school safety committee or the district-wide safety committee that we have on board. And every school has a site safety team, right? And so the thinking is, right, their voice contributes to the development of the safety plan, right? And the input and that information gets funneled up, right? So we get that feedback through there. So that's there's always no shortage of safety issues that arise, right? Social media online is the funnest of them all, right? Because that just evolves, right? That seems to be 2 steps ahead of us, right? So but we're excited about bringing some more resources back to our schools so that they can definitely increase the safety of students and staff on campus.
I will add also, we invite our insurance carrier to be a part of the safety committee. And they've been very instrumental in years past. They assign safety consultants to work with us. They bring to us different practices throughout California, sometimes from other school sites in other states, and share ideas, share resources, quick things that we can implement now, and then also long-term things to plan for. So that's also a very helpful component is inviting our insurance to be a part of our safety committee.
So one more question. So as I'm hearing input and feedback, are we collecting that? Is that some kind of a survey? Do we collect that feedback? And then where does that, how do you access that if there's...
Well, so I will say that what's really exciting about the presentation you heard this evening is that, before we used to look at safety and it was just really, 2-dimensional, and now it's really, we're expanding it. And so we used to look at safety just from a physical space, right? And so that's what our safety plans reflected. We now know that safety encompasses many other areas. And so we're in a space right now where we're going to redefine all of these components and create systems and protocols, bringing forth, of course, some of the best practices. And so the idea is that every school has a safety team. The safety team shares information with their school administrators share information with the district safety team, and then we make decisions based on, what's next. Of course, like I said, we work with consultants that are sharing with us, up-to-date information on, how we can always improve our safety plan. And we work in collaboration with the police department as well in developing the safety plans to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Garcia. Thank you,
Very
Mr. Herrera. And just some comments. It was just great to see the safety measures. The ones that really stood out, the expansion of wellness centers and spaces on our campus, that is wonderful. We can never have enough resources, right? Especially when it comes to our self-care and wellness. So that really stood out. Thank you. And another one, it's the school bus is equipped with interior cameras. Wow, that really stood out because, I mean, you hear about many things, but then you really never get to just hear. We have those in place here in our district, and also I can't wait to hear all about the vaping detectors, right? And those are new, going back to how we can really help our students, right, before it's too late. So. All of those were wonderful to see here on the presentation. So thank you again, Mr. Herrera, for this very comprehensive presentation. If we have no other comments, questions, and thank you again, and we can move on to our next presentation. And we have our item number 2, our items of interest for this evening, our Norwood School update.
Thank you, President Redas and governing board members. I think we're going to get set up over there. The next presentation for you this evening is a presentation on Norwood Elementary. Just to give you a little bit of context, over a decade ago, and I know it seems like yesterday, but we closed 3 schools. The district made a really tough decision of closing 3 schools in the El Monte City School District as a result of declining enrollment. At the time, the schools were identified as Mulhall, which has transformed into the Jeff Seymour Family Center, Loma, which is our child development hub for the actual the child development program. And then Norwood has served very different purposes throughout the years. Early on, Norwood was leased by the El Monte Union High School District, and it served as a campus for students. And then during construction at Durfee, we thought it would be the safest way to keep our little students, kindergarten through 2nd grade, away from the construction as we remodeled some of those classrooms. And so throughout the years, there's been a lot of conversation about Norwood and what are the next steps for Norwood. I will put that on pause for 1 second because also part of this conversation is some of the groundbreaking work that we've been able to do as a district. In 2013, we were invited to collect EDI data. And I know you've heard this through the years. And this is a wonderful index that provides, population data to really help to understand what's happening in your community. And so we've used this data to really, try to create some alignment to our resources to make sure that our 0 to 5 population is ready for school when they enter into our school system. And so we've been collecting EDI data for several years. The wonderful news about the EDI data is that we've been able to see progress. We've been able to see, how some of our neighborhoods have improved as a result of very targeted efforts. And so it leads us to tonight's presentation because we have an opportunity to really think about what's good for Norwood. When I think about the vision of this board throughout the years, there's been a lot of consistencies, but 2 that I want to highlight this evening is always looking at the whole child. What's best for children from head to toe, and it's not just about reading, writing, and math, but are they being fed? Do they have the right tools? Do they have the right clothes? Do they have the resources? Are we providing the arts? And, you know, it's been a plethora of things that we say, what is good for children and their upbringing? And the second thing is, if it's good for children, it's also good for their family. And there's been this deep care for how do we embrace our community to really make these impacting and long-lasting changes. And so we've had the pleasure of working with some wonderful partners to think about next steps for Norwood. And this evening, there's an opportunity for you to listen to some of the thoughts and ideas, some of the grants and resources that are out there, and to continue to add to that vision on how we support children in this community, how we use EDI data to make sure that they're ready to go, you know, when they step onto that kinder or TK classroom. And the role that we can play in terms of that 0 to 5 connectiveness is a lot bigger than we thought many, many, many years ago. So I'm going to turn it over to Cristina Davila, who you know, a very familiar face, who's really spearheading a lot of this work. And then she's going to invite some of our wonderful guests that are with us, our wonderful partners from Craft Water Engineering and Active San Gabriel Valley.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. That was a very eloquent introduction. And I'm, really excited to be here today to talk a little bit about Norwood Elementary and the potential that this campus has. And so before we talk about the physical space, I wanted to kind of provide a little bit more detail to the context that Dr. Garcia gave. In 2013, we were invited by First 5 LA and UCLA. We entered into this partnership to start collecting EDI data to really talk through how our students were doing before they entered our formal school systems. So since then, we've been able to do 3 more rounds of collection, including last year. First 5 LA and UCLA have worked to expand the number of districts that they're working with. This data set is being used countrywide, if that is a thing, in Australia and in Canada, and essentially is a monitoring system for early childhood development. And so we know that school districts are not the only folks interacting with students at such a young age. The city systems are interacting with them, county resources are interacting with them. So it really gives us a good snapshot of how our students are doing. And then along with this data collection, we've been able to work with our county and national learning networks. So they're with other states that are collecting similar data and other districts in our county, within our county, and even all over Southern California as a whole, actually, to collect this data and share best practices on how we're utilizing it to build out and improve early childhood outcomes. So just a quick reminder, if you don't remember, there's 5 developmental domains: physical health and well-being, social competence, emotional maturity, language and cognitive development, and communication skills. So internally, we've been able to utilize this data to shift programming and policies within our district. We've launched parent programs like Abriendo Puertas in 2016 and 2018 in partnership with community organizations. We use this data to call out the allocation of the different little libraries in our community. So some of our school sites were prioritized when those little libraries were put up. We've developed a TK Kinder Readiness Program that launched last year, was piloted last year, and has continued to expand. The parent programming and the specific things that are focused on in the TK Kinder Readiness Program directly come from some of the vulnerabilities that came to light with the EDI data. And then integration and intentionality with our 0 to 5 population. So when we're hosting, for example, vaccine clinics, right? Having activities and educational opportunities for our little ones to learn how to brush their teeth, and then having dental screenings, making sure that they're included in all the programs that we're doing in a very intentional way. So that's direct service. That's in our direct service piece. In terms of our systems approach, we've been working with our child development department to improve the referral systems and the relationship between them and the Jeff Seymour Family Center. Our Head Start and Early Head Start programs have very robust referral processes. They have staff members dedicated to making sure that our families are going through their milestones and their health checks and all that stuff. And so we want to make sure that all the support that is given to them in the Head Start programs, when they transition to El Monte City School District, that families don't feel a drop-off, but they still feel that support, that family support. And then we've also shared EDI data with our administrators, our teachers, both in our Head Start and our Child Development departments, as well as our kinder teachers to inform planning. But we can't do it alone, right? So in 2018, our district invited Mountain View School District and Rosemead School District to start collecting EDI data as well. We know that this community in general doesn't have clean boundaries with our cities and our school districts, and we have multiple districts that feed into our high school district. And so we really wanted to get a snapshot of how our students were doing at a regional level. And so we've worked with our city partners. We started bringing the city to the table, as well as these districts, the city of Rosemead. We started convening this collaborative that was really talking about how we can all work together to improve early childhood outcomes, since each entity and institution plays a unique role in the lives of our families. And so, again, intentionality, right? In 2018, during the Children's Day Parade and Harvest Festival, we created a little hub that was specific for children 0 to 5 on physical activity and improving literacy. We're repeating that success this year, so look out for us on Saturday. We'll be doing that as well. Essentially, really, the intention was to bring together these folks, again, because we know that supporting families during these formative years is really, really important. And we want to make sure that we're doing our part in coordinating across different entities to make sure that our families have what they need to succeed. So we want to build off the success from the Jeff Seymour Family Center in co-locating resources and programs, again, intentionally, to support families. And the vision for Norwood would be to create a very similar hub, but again, specifically dedicated to children 0 to 5. So imagine a place where families can go and to look for programs, resources, a safe place for students and children to play, to explore, and to socialize, so that by the time they enter our school systems, they're ready to learn and succeed. So it is my pleasure to introduce Edna Rovidas, project manager at Trust for Public Land. She's going to walk us through our plan to transform the physical space of Norwood.
Thank you so much. And let me know if you can't hear me clearly. I can pull my mask down. So as Christina said, I will be walking through the plans for the physical improvements of the Norwood site. A little background, this effort on my part, Trust for Public Land is a national nonprofit that conserves land and builds parks for people to enjoy. We got involved in this through the Link Advocates Governments, Families, and Parks Initiative. It's an initiative funded by First 5 LA in part, working in 6 communities across LA County to build capacity in underinvested communities to create, among other things, multi-benefit projects, while ensuring parents and residents have a voice in the decision-making for those projects. In El Monte, this effort has been led by Active San Gabriel Valley and TPL. As part of the Link Initiative, we did about 2 years of community outreach, and outreach from that, or feedback from that outreach process, identified multiple community priorities across El Monte, which you can see in the graphic on the left, and of those green space priorities included public access, greening, and recreational amenities at Norwood Elementary School. And as you've heard as well, concurrently, the school district has been working with stakeholders to plan for the future of the Norwood campus. For those that aren't familiar, Norwood Elementary is an approximately 6-acre former campus. It's been closed since about 2010. There is an existing joint use agreement with the city for the use of the softball fields for a local sports team. Nearly 7,000 people live within a 10-minute walk of the site. 10 minutes is about half a mile for most folks. 25% of that is children under 20 years old. And as you can see from this graphic, there are no other public green spaces within a half-mile radius.
And if you don't mind, I
Yeah, of
just want to
course.
comment on this. When this data point was shared with me, the work with EDI is that we want to bring resources to those very specific neighborhoods that are vulnerable. And, when I just thought about the alignment, right? Like the fact that Norwood is so accessible, 6,900 people live within a 10-minute walk of Norwood. That was very powerful, right? Because you always want to make sure that the resources are aligned to where the needs are. And then 25% of the children that live in this area are under 20 years old. And so that's, even though we're targeting that 0 to 5, the idea that we can start off, with just the local children and then turn it into a park that really benefits all kids, maybe even all kids in this region, 0 to 5, which is something that doesn't exist anywhere else unless it's a private entity.
Thank you. As part of the community outreach that was done, it included 17 tabling events at farmers markets, resources fairs, and other local events. Over 1,200 community members participated. Over 500 surveys were collected and an additional 100 youth-specific surveys. Social media, mailers, and texting were used to engage folks and let them know about these events. And then we also hosted an online interactive mapping survey where people were able to locate their priorities on a map and provide feedback in that way as well. That received over 100 responses. Through all of this outreach, Norwood Elementary arose as a distinct priority for a new park with shade trees, active play equipment, and recreational sports fields as the top of the list of proposed improvements that people wanted to see. This graphic shows a proposed concept plan for those improvements. The proposed design or concept design, this is really in the initial stages, I'd like to point out. The proposed improvements include keeping the softball fields. It's a little hard to see on this larger screen. It's a little easier to see on these smaller screens. The proposed improvements include keeping the softball fields and the primary buildings, removing one temporary building and parking lot that is in the upper right-hand corner of the site currently, and reducing the main parking lot that you see down at the bottom. Adding walkways throughout, a playground, an edible garden, trees, and landscaping. The site would also capture water from the surrounding streets, cleansing and infiltrating it on site, which would recharge underground aquifers. And going back just quickly, this is in the initial stages of design. This is just a concept plan. There will be an upcoming community design process that will inform the project design, and the school district and other stakeholders would have be part of that design process and have multiple opportunities to review and weigh in. Project funding, the total estimated project cost is currently about $9.8 million. We have one current proposal submitted to the LA County Safe Clean Water Program that's under consideration for the current round. That would be for the full project amount, which includes both design and construction. There's also a current grant that was awarded to Active San Gabriel Valley from RMC Rivers and Mountains Conservancy's Proposition 68 grant to continue community outreach and refinement of the concept plan. Timeline includes between now and March of 2023 would be the community engagement process continues. This will include parent group meetings, pop-up events on site at Norwood, and a survey. The Measure W timeline, it's currently headed to their scoring committee, which is the first step of their process, their review process, this November. We should know by early 2023 if funding is likely, and we anticipate funding confirmation to be this sometime this spring. And then once funding is secured, design and construction for a site like this, of this size, would typically take between 3 to 5 years, depending on a number of factors, including permitting, design process, community engagement process, and so on. So the next steps on this project are to continue community outreach and concept plan refinement. This will continue regardless of whether the Measure W grant is awarded. And then once full project funding is secured, the next steps would be to hire a design team and develop construction documents. If Measure W, if that grant is not successful, we'll continue to apply for funding. We're very committed to this project and working with the school district. There are a number of other funding opportunities coming online, including the CAL FIRE. There's a CAL FIRE school greening program that's being released this winter for about $115 million total in the grant program. So we're really looking forward to continuing this partnership and potentially working on similar projects throughout the school district. My contact information, again, my name is Edna, is up on the screen.
Thank you very much, Ms. Edna. Any comments, questions from the board? Mrs. Kobian.
I had a question related to funding. So is the idea to fully fund the project from outside sources, outside of district fund?
That would be the idea. I think Mr. Jimenez, who was in the audience, pointed out, that this community is park poor, and there are some opportunities right now with resources, both at the state level, at the federal level, to bring those resources here. And so we'd like to capture as much as we can. And I want to speak to the facility part of it, really. The vision would be to transform the entire space into a 0 to 5 hub. And so thinking about how we bring very key office spaces there, but minimal, and then really utilizing those classrooms for, with something like a children's museum that parents can bring their kids and visit as part of the extension of that outdoor space, as well as holding classes there, because we still have some wonderful kindergarten classrooms at Norwood. So lots of opportunities to really think about how we make it happen. And then there's a lot of one-time monies that can really support. And we'd like to capture a lot of the funding opportunities that exist now.
Thank you. And then the other thing I was thinking about, I know this would be down the line, but looking at working with the city, I suppose, on transportation routes to make sure that it's accessible from the different areas of the city.
I think that's been one of the goals for EDI work
Yeah.
is, as wonderful as it is to see how many people can access Norwood space, that still leaves many others that would need some type of public transportation to get to the space. And the goal has always been to look at these most vulnerable neighborhoods and work collaboratively to create transportation to resources in the community. And so that would be wonderful, I think a wonderful project. I'm looking at you, Ms. Christina, to continue. And, a lot of these conversations started before the pandemic. We were planning this wonderful event on, the state of the child in the city, in this region. And the pandemic obviously put a lot of things on hold, but as we're back and things are just really kind of getting back into the swing of things, there's lots of plans to just, continue that work.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mrs. Kobian. Mrs. Mendez.
Yes, you see my face. What I'm excited about thinking about a 0 to 5 is how we're then able to support students with early intervention, right? Not necessarily like identifying, right? But we do have a lot of children that it's not until kindergarten that they start identifying and start receiving intervention for certain disabilities, to be able to provide a space where it's about that early intervention. I already know we do that with our speech and language pathologists who are providing parent outreach, so that we can provide early speech and language intervention before they even need to be identified for speech services. And I'm already thinking having, it's already something that I know at Lambert Park, right? The playground did it there. They already started putting things in place that are inclusive playground materials and equipment, and to know that that's something that we can do for our 0 to 5. That would be great. A sensory room. I'm like, sign me up. I'm like,
I'll never forget a conversation that we had, again, many years ago. It was a focus group that the city of El Monte was doing when they were really trying to gather ideas on how to use these park dollars that were going to be made available. And there was some, group of kids there. And of course, skate parks came up, and then these other little boys raised their hand and they said, "We want basketball courts." And they weren't dismissed, but they were told, "We have basketball courts throughout the community." And they're like, "No, we want basketball courts, but we're not going to get kicked off the court because we're small, And so it just made me think about, sometimes there could be a little bit of a pecking order, right, when you go onto playgrounds. And so we want to also just remove all of that and make it very much, age appropriate, a safe space for families to gather, appropriate basketball courts or nets, whatever that is, just so that kids feel safe, connected, and are thriving.
And it is a space where I would see parents and families from outside the communities that would know, like, okay, El Monte has this 0 to 5 playground that is supportive of those littles. Great vision to have and
Thank you.
goal.
Thank you, Mrs. Mendez. Mrs. Rivas.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if this is a park where we remove some gates and fencing? Is this, something that's open to the community at all times? And also if this would require further, like expanding the joint use agreement with the city?
Those are the questions that we have now, and I think that we'll continue to explore as we, the design is very much, I don't want to say pie in the sky, but we're just bringing forth all the best ideas of just, how we can really make the space wonderful for kids and families. And I think as those things the plan just gets cemented, then we'll figure out, how to make it accessible, how to make it safe, how to work in partnership with the community and the city of El Monte to make sure that it's a space that can remain open and safe at the right times.
Mr. Segrist.
Yes, one question. Is it possible at this point to do a projected study on traffic? What would the traffic be like in the area? That's a question. And then request, I hope they keep the handball courts because I used to play handball with the Basques in Chino, and I've been asked to practice again, and I have no place to practice, so please keep the handball courts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Segrist. I do have some questions, and I really appreciate Ms. Sedna and Ms. Christina, you sharing the community outreach slide, specifically on that outreach that has been included. My questions go to the surveys, and I'm just curious to know, to kind of just know a little bit about how your questions look like besides the basic information. Maybe a survey of how many questions and around what types of questions.
We can definitely provide that survey to the board to see. I mean, I think there's been a lot of different versions, and, we're planning on doing some focus groups with key communicators and some of our parent groups. And so things are tailored to your audience, but happy to share some of those tools with the board.
Wonderful. And how long did this specific collection of data take?
I believe outreach occurred over about 9 months.
Okay. Because I do see here 500 surveys, right? So in 9 months?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. And
Yeah.
thank you for your
I think
presentation.
they got a lot of responses at those community events that were really well attended.
That's wonderful, and a wonderful opportunity, right, to take advantage of, such as what you mentioned, the farmers market and other events, to really go out there and engage with the community and have their responses and their feedback. So thank you very much again for this presentation.
And President Rivas, I do want to take this opportunity to also acknowledge the leadership of Mr. David Diaz, who's been coordinating a lot of these efforts and really bringing forward many partners. I think about the Avengers theme, right? Assemble, because that's exactly what he's doing. He's assembling people to come forward and really, add value to this project and this work.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. David Diaz. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Well done.
Wonderful, and we will move on, and now we'll continue to our communication section of this evening's agenda, beginning with public comments. And I do see here, we welcome two public comments. The first one by Mrs. Irma Samarano. Welcome, Mrs. Samarano.
Yes.
Yes.
This is my first time here, so this is really beautiful. So
Welcome.
Congratulations. Thank you. So good evening, board members. My name is Irma Samarano. I'm a lifelong resident, one who really cares about our city. I have questions that have been circulating, around the community, and that's about the El Monte Promise Foundation. So I'd like to know what happened to the $10 million of the El Monte Promise Foundation to pay for the students' college education. I want to know how many students have benefited by the Promise Foundation. And is it true that you're paying outrageous amount to consultants to do what, what do the consultants do? Also, is it true that the Money Promise Foundation is being investigated by the FBI? And why can't we get financial reports? I mean, if you guys are transparent, we should be able to get financial reports. Also, I would like to see if we get some invoices, because $10 million is a lot of money. So I'd like to see that we get some invoices. So second item, I'm sorry, I'm quite concerned about what's happening in the Almonte City School District. Board members, we have hostile environment, harassment, intimidation, threatening employees, age discrimination, disrespected, being watched by school cameras, being watched by school employees, putting and looking down on employees, and the lack of professionalism. I'm quite concerned that this is happening by I don't know if it's under Mr. Salensbeck's watch, but maybe there should be, these individuals need to be, go back to workshops, learn how to treat people with dignity and respect. Where's the empathy? Where's the compassion for the employees? Especially during this time, the trying times, so. I hope you look into this matter, and it's quite alarming that this is happening now. Thank you and good evening.
Thank you, Mrs. Zamorano. And we will continue now with our second public comment of this evening. We welcome Mr. Cosme Jimenez. Welcome, Mr. Jimenez.
Thank you. I have some copies to pass to the board members. Can I give it to you?
You can hand it to Mrs. Robles. There you go.
Good evening. My name is Cosme Jimenez, a community activist for a long time. I care about the community. That's why one of the meetings here. And you have copies there why we don't have parks in El Monte. Due to the ex-mayor, he had to control everything. Pioneer Park sold it to the developer on Santa Anita. They made a deal to remove the park, build housing there, and replace the park in a couple of years. We're still waiting 7 years later, or 10 years close to now. Promises made that he never kept. Also, the political forum in South El Monte, which some of you attended, the political forum, some of you members attended, and Mayor Ancona said that our city is not for sale. But I need to complete the phrase that says the city is not for sale, but the council seats and the school board seats are for sale thanks to Team El Monte, run by Andre Quintero. And we gotta be careful when you buy your seat. You're playing with democracy. They're buying your seat, you gotta be a puppet. We had 3 puppets right now at the city council. You might be one of them too, because if they bought your seat, you gotta make your homework. Nothing is free in this life. You're playing with democracy. And this is really, this country as a whole, we're going through big changes in democracy is one of the worries about it. We don't know Cuba, some of you don't know, you don't want to know. Russia, China, Venezuela, you don't have an idea how people live there. And that's why we're playing with fire here. Somebody said it already, big scientist said it, we're playing with fire. They start buying seats, you're going to follow the loyal to the king. That's what he says. And that's what happened. That's why we got rid of Quintero. He didn't believe it, but he's gone. He loved the city so much that he moved to Pasadena now. So that's how much he cared about the city. So hopefully he stays away. So in a couple of comments here, the website of this place needs improvements. Really hard to open it, really hard to see details, like this one right now, but the Norwood, I only saw a line, I could not open anymore. I should be able to open it before I come here to ask questions. How can I ask questions if I don't have any idea? You know, it's got to be, the money is there. It's got to be a better design. You know, like the city of Ammonia design. It's a lot better, but it could be better. But this one is a lot worse. You know, that's my opinion. I could be wrong. And,
Mr. Jimenez, your 3 minutes are up.
pardon me?
Your minutes are up.
Oh, but thank, what?
Your
Yeah, do you
time
want to
is
just
up.
wrap up your
Yeah,
comment?
just if you can, please.
Oh, the last one is Norwood School, you know, public outreach, we need it. We don't have it. We can talk about it here, that's all. I would recommend like a big sign, Norwood School, but a big sign, public, we're gonna have a meeting, such and such time, community center. You know, people can see it when they're driving around the school, because we don't have outreach. I need to find out about 3 months after it happens. Okay, please, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jimenez. And now we will continue with our written communications, if any.
No written communication has
No
come
written
forward.
communications. Okay, continuing now with board member communications, beginning with Mrs. Cobian.
Thank you. I just want to say, definitely looking forward to the many events that are going to be happening this coming weekend in our community, in addition to our Children's Day Parade, which we'll get to highlight. I know some of our schools are putting together little groups to participate in the Harvest Festival. Our high school district is also hosting a college and career fair. And I believe Senator Rubio is also hosting a leadership event for young girls. So there are many great opportunities. It's just very exciting to see the community starting to come out and do things again, particularly in support of children. So I'm just very excited for all of that. And those are my comments for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Cobian. Mrs. Mendez Garcia.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I just would like to give a big kudos to the Amani City School District Nutrition Department, who launched their own social media platform, which has been great to see. They posted their menu. So on top of one, we just do such a great job with our social media, right? We're just trying to connect with parents and the community in so many different ways. And I follow the different school sites, and they're constantly posting. So it's just so great as a board member. I can imagine a parent and a community member who's able to see all the different things that are going on. Every day, it's great to see that there's a lot of active engagement and a lot of things beyond academics, supporting the whole child, and fun events for kids to make memories. And the schools are highlighting it, and to see that now our nutrition department wants to be part of that. And they want to have that outreach, and they want to share the great things and the great menus and the great food that they're providing to our students. So I want to give a kudos to them. A third thing that I kind of, with information I'd like to share with the board, the LA County Department of Public and Social Services launched a Family Urgent Response System number. And it is available 24/7, and you can call or text. And it's for current and former foster youth and their caregivers as well. So it's a way, LA County's already launched, right, one number to support mental health, right, to help alleviate what it would be a 911 emergency, what would be a mental health emergency. Now they have another line to support our foster youth. And again, what was so great, it's not just current foster youth, but it's also former foster youth and for their caregivers that need support. I'd be happy to share the number with Dr. Garcia, and please as well share it with all of your mental health and just administrators. They just launched it last week.
Thank you.
And then third note, I just would like to re-highlight, I guess, it was last week that it was Mental Health Awareness Day. Again, I saw the district promoted that, and again, we're just I feel like as a nation, but also as a state and a community, we're just really breaking down that stigma with mental health. The more we speak about it, the more we make it just kind of part of the same way we go to a doctor, the same way we take care of our physical health, right? We're also taking care of our wellness and our well-being and our mental well-being. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Mendez Garcia. Mrs. Rivas.
Yeah, similar to what Ms. Cobian was saying, I'm so happy and excited to see the number of events happening at our schools, where the families are coming back onto the school sites to do these fall activities. I've also been noticing, and Mr. Herrera has pointed this out in previous board meetings, that we're doing the Harvest of the Month again, right? So to me, what that speaks to is that we are coming at student wellness and academic success and mental and physical health from all angles. wanting to be sure that our kids and families have positive experiences on the campuses together. They're connecting with each other. That they're moving on campuses now. The bowling has started, and the Soccer for Success is being advertised. Right, the kids are moving. They're learning about eating healthy. They already know, but we all needed the reminder anyway, right? So I just appreciate that all of these things are rolling now, and that we're really coming at student wellness from all angles. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Rivas.
I have a
Mr.
number
Sig-
of items, so do not shoot the messenger. Number one, I wish that we had been invited to the ceremony at LACO for the Teacher of the Year, because other board members were there from other districts. We didn't go. I think next time we should go. I recently went to the Mountain View High School and had a tour of what they're doing there, restructuring, revamping the campus. Beautiful. I went to LOXTA meeting, the last one, and it was really interesting because the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services from South Whittier School District presented about new teachers, how you're going to recruit new teachers, and if you do bring them in, you have to train them, give them mentoring, collaboration, keep them, and then retain them. And I noted that she did take a note on her notepad when I said our district recognizes for seniority years of service. She said, what a wonderful idea. So they're taking that back. There's a young lady across the street from Nativity Church who's one of our substitutes, and she wants to be a full-time teacher here. And I said, well, have you looked for grants? And she said, yes. She got the $20,000 Golden State grant for teachers that I never knew about. And so she really wants to become a teacher here. Marvelous lady. This morning I had the wonderful experience of health screening down at the headquarters administration of the El Monte Union High School District. It was open to employees and their guests, and I came back, and they said they would love to do that for our district, for our employees. Actually have a full day from 9 in the morning till 5 in the afternoon, and it was wonderful what they did. I have a lot of people asking me, why are middle schoolers in the Pasadena Unified School District presently taking credit classes from Pasadena City College right now during the fall session? They want to know why our kids aren't doing the same thing. I need to answer that back. Many people in the Vietnamese community are asking when, not if, we're going to offer Vietnamese dual immersion. And yes, there are many of them interested in that, because they're telling me that a lot of their children cannot speak to their grandparents or the seniors in their families. I hope that we will entertain, starting again, the spelling bee statewide, district-wide. The spelling bee for the county is going to be March of next year. They're bringing it back. A couple of years ago, Baldwin Park won. Bassett came pretty close to winning. One year, Glendale won. And when people say it's too much work for the teachers don't do anything. The district provides the lists of words. The kids take them home. Families help them. Another one, I'm concerned about agenda setting. Since I've been on this board many years, I keep asking for items on the agenda. They're never there, and I would like to have them there once in a while. I did note that, again, the CSBA is offering the Coast to Coast event, and I'd like us to be part of the Coast to Coast event 2023. There's a PTA luncheon coming up that I hope that we're going to be going to that. It would be wonderful. Thursday night, I had the pleasure of attending the installation of the new President Superintendent, Dr. Marilyn Flores from Rio Hondo College. I would entertain an invitation to have her come here so we would meet her and we could share with her what we would like to do with the college. Also, I will finish with this. I went to an incredible learning experience. It was training at the DLAC. Mr. Lopez and Maria Morgan did an outstanding job explaining the DLAC, membership in it, and I learned how to make motions in private organizations. It can only be done by the officers, but I will say they did a marvelous job in English and in Spanish, and our superintendent was there, and she brought up the fact about attendance, why it's so important, and it was beautifully done. Dr. Garcia explained about Saturday makeup classes, and that they really were taking notes. It was wonderful. And I would encourage all of us to go to DLAC at least once. It was beautiful. And thank you so much for what you did. Thank you.
Thank you for, and I have to echo on what everyone has said, but Mr. Segrist on learning what the board there on how they deliver in Spanish and everything. I need to learn
Beautifully
those.
done.
They really do an amazing job. Our parents, they're amazing. Again, looking forward to all of the amazing events that are scheduled and that are about to happen in the upcoming days. We have the Children's Day Parade and Harvest Festival that I'm very much excited and looking forward to. And of course, as Mrs. Kobian mentioned, the Wings Leadership event that is being brought by Senator Susan Rubio. So many exciting things are happening throughout the Almonte City School District. So looking forward to attending those. So thank you, and thank you all for your board member comments, communication. So with this said, we're gonna take a 5-minute break.
Yes.
And we will be right back. Thank you. Continuing with our approval motion.
I'll move to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion at this point? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Moving on to our reports, continuing with 2022-2023 Williams Uniform Complaint Policy Quarter 1 Summary Report. Mr. Sollenbach.
Thank you, President Redes. Before you is our Quarter 1 Williams Uniform Complaint report that we must file with the Los Angeles County Office of Education. This report covers the period from July 1 through September 30th, and I'm pleased to share that during this time, we had no complaints.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Mr. Sollenbach. You're wonderful. And at this point, we don't do a vote for this, right? Okay, perfect. Moving on to our action consent agenda. Do we have any board members that wish to pull any items? Mr.
Yes,
Segrist.
numbers 1 and 2.
Numbers 1 and 2. Any others? Okay, hearing none. Is there a motion to approve the action consent agenda minus items number 1 and 2?
I so move.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes. And going back to item, let's start off with item number 1. Mr. Segrist.
Okay, item number 1, I would encourage us to continue trying to find a credit card that gives bonuses back. I am with the American Legion. We kept getting something from Capital One that said if you have a Capital One bank account, credit card, you get reimbursed. So maybe there may be somebody out there to do it, because I know they're all competing. So I would encourage us. I know, Jose, you've been looking for that, and just keep looking. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Segrist. Do we have a motion to approve item number 1?
I'll make a motion for number 1.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Now going back to item number 2, Mr. Segrist.
Here I am again. I look at the amount, beginning balance, ending balance, and no change. In my opinion, I think it's correct. Over time, this money is worth less. Every time you leave money sitting there with no interest, you're going to be buying, your purchasing power goes down. I would encourage, for example, the Carol Sano Trust, $17,491.91. Use it for something, or invest it with interest. And also Clemenson, $6,186.53. The teachers and the staff should know there's money there to use it. Maybe they don't know. That's my take. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Segrist. Do we have a motion to approve item number 2?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Segrist. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
No.
Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Great, and now we'll move on to our next section of our agenda this evening, and that is our actions. Beginning with item number 1, consideration of approval of purchase orders. Mr. Herrera.
Thank you, President Ruedas, members of the governing board. Before you is the September 2022 purchase order report. Total is $1.4 million. About half of that is payment or a purchase order set up with the merged JPA, which is the Joint Powers Authority that then provides transportation services to our organization. That covers the first quarter roughly of this fiscal year for student transportation services. We also have a purchase order set up with data impressions for a little over $100,000 for 100 staff computers that we are purchasing and 4 network servers. The network servers are not covered under the grant, but I will be talking about a grant in our cabinet update. The 100 staff computers will be covered under a grant that we were recently approved for.
Thank you, Mr. Herrera. Is there a motion for item number 1?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Cobian. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Mendez Garcia. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
I abstain.
Thank you. This motion carries. Moving on to item number 2, consideration of approval to adopt Resolution 22-2307, Celebration of Native American Heritage Month, November 2022. Dr. Pinedo.
Thank you, President Ruedas and Governing Board. Before you, for your consideration, I have Resolution 22-2307, proclaiming November 2022 as Native American Heritage Month in the Amani City School District. November is Native American Heritage Month, or as it is commonly referred to, American Indian and Alaska Native Heritage Month. The month is a time to celebrate rich and diverse cultures, traditions, and histories, and to acknowledge the important contributions of Native people.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Pinedo. And I was going to say Dr. Garcia, but a little confusion. And with this said, do we have a motion for item number 2?
I'll make the motion.
Okay. It's okay. I don't remember who said it first. But okay, a second. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mrs. Cobian. Any discussion?
Yes, I again have requested that we recognize and celebrate the contributions of the Italian American community because this is Italian American Heritage Month. We're not doing it. We're also neglecting again to celebrate Columbus. And I have to answer back to the members of the Knights of Columbus from Nativity Church, La Señora Guadalupe Church, Epiphany Church, St. Luke's, and all of the Knights of Columbus. They are not very happy with the fact that we ignore Italian Americans. And more than one of them has said that what you're doing by selecting only 4 ethnicities, you're giving the message that only 4 ethnicities are important. Somehow I have to explain that. One of the men was very upset. He said, what you're doing is you're creating xenophobia, racism, specialty for certain organizations. And I have to answer back and say why. Why are we ignoring Italian American Heritage Month? We neglected Irish American Month. We neglected Filipino American Month. This country was made up by so many ethnicities. They all deserve equal treatment. That's what I'm getting back from people that I'm with in our community. In fact, one of the gentlemen that's very upset, he's the former president of the Italian American Association of LA County. He's Italian, and there are Italians in our community, Italian Americans, and I'm just saying, we're neglecting people. What message are we giving to the community, especially immigrants? They're only thinking there's only 4 ethnicities that we recognize. I think there are a lot more than that. That's my take. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Segrist. With this, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Item number 3, consideration of approval to adopt Resolution 22-2308, Celebration of Veterans Day, November 11th. Dr. Pinedo.
Thank you, President Ruedas and Governing Board. Before you for your consideration is Resolution 22-2308, proclaiming November 11th as Veterans Day in the Amani City School District. Veterans Day is a national holiday celebrated on November 11th. The purpose of Veterans Day is to honor America's veterans for their patriotism, love of country, and willingness to support and sacrifice for the common good.
Thank you, Dr. Pinedo. With this, do we have a motion for item number 3?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Segrist. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Just something that I would like to share with you. Historically, you're being told that we lost the Vietnam War, okay? If you look at what happened there, because and I was part of that with CIA, NSA, and the Navy, Army, and Marines, we stopped the takeover by the communists of Thailand, that was my area, Indonesia, the Philippines, Burma, India, and yes, the communists were on their way to those countries. Because we sacrificed 55,000 people in Vietnam, we stopped what they were going to do for the rest of Southeast Asia and Asia. So, and on behalf of veterans that I'm with, I really appreciate this because it's very well done, and I thank you so much on behalf of all of us veterans. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Segrist. With this said, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Item number 4, consideration of approval of annual and 5-year developer fee report resolution 222309.
Thank you, Board President Redas. This is a required report that we need to bring to the board annually. Once every 5 years, we also need to bring the report. So to be in compliance, we just bring the annual and 5-year report each year with the rolling 5-year, so we're never out of compliance. There are some pretty severe fiscal penalties if you're not in compliance. The city of San Clemente back in 2015 had to return $10 million in developer fees, plus interest, because they weren't accounting and reporting for the developer fees properly. The assessment is $3, a little over $3 per square foot on residential construction and about 50 cents per square foot roughly on industrial construction. The high school district collects the fee, and they give about 2/3 of the fee out to the elementary school district here. So it's for any construction or development that happens within the city of El Monte. We have close to $3 million in that developer fee account, Fund 25. As we proceed with the master plan, we're going to identify projects that we can fund specifically out of developer fees. They are a little challenging to spend when you're in declining enrollment because you need to identify a nexus that the fees that are being assessed is as a result of additional students in your community. So it's a little difficult to spend those dollars in a declining enrollment environment, but we'll be working closely with our auditors and our legal counsel to look at different projects that we can get creative that can be funded or subsidized in part with these developer fees as we move forward with wrapping up the master plan.
Thank you, Mr. Herrera. For item number 4, is there a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Mrs. Cobian. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Rivas. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Lastly, item number 5, consideration of approval of federal micro-purchase threshold resolution 222310. Mr. Herrera.
Thank you. The federal government increased their bidding threshold back in late 2020 from $10,000 up to $50,000. As a reminder, the state of California bidding threshold is $99,000. So this resolution would allow the district to participate with a higher bidding threshold of $50,000 a year. Anything above $50,000, we need to get multiple quotes on and go through the formal bidding process. As a reminder, again, the federal bidding threshold through this resolution would increase in alignment with the recent guidance in late 2020 that was passed, increasing the threshold from $10,000 up to $50,000. That's still well below what the state requirement is here. Our bidding threshold in the state of California is $99,000.
Thank you, Mr. Herrera. For item number 5, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Mendez Garcia. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Segrist. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Okay, moving on to our board policy updates. We have 23 this evening, and we all had the opportunity to review these particular updates. So now to continue, I will go ahead and make that first motion and then ask for a second and for discussion if there's any. Perfect. Item number 1, consideration of approval of second reading of revised Exhibit 13 district and school websites. I move to approve this item. Is there a second?
I'll second that. Sorry.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Okay.
Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Board policy update number 2, consideration of approval of second reading of revised administrative regulation 1312.4 and exhibit 1312.4 Williams Uniform Complaint Procedures. I move to approve this item. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. 3, consideration of approval of second reading of revised board policy 3110, transfer of funds. I move to approve this item. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. 4, consideration of approval of second reading of revised administrative regulation 3517, facilities inspection. I move to approve this item. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. I'm sorry, Mrs. Cobian? Mrs. Cobian. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. 5, consideration of approval of second reading of new board policy 3523 and administrative regulation 3523, electronic signatures. I move to approve this item. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Mendes Garcia. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. 6, consideration of approval of second reading of revised board policy 3550 and administrative regulation 3550, food service child nutrition program. I move to approve this item. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. 7, consideration of approval of second reading of revised board policy 3551 and administrative regulation 3551, food service operations cafeteria fund. I move to approve this item. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. 8, consideration of approval of second reading of revised board policy 3553 and administrative regulation 3553, free and reduced price meals. I move to approve this item. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. 9, consideration of approval of second reading of revised administrative regulation 4112.2, certification. I move to approve this item. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. 10, consideration of approval of second reading of revised administrative regulation 4161.8, 4261.8, 4361.8, family care and medical leave. I move to approve this item. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. 11, consideration of approval of second reading of revised administrative regulation 6173.1, education for foster youth. I move to approve this item. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. 12, Consideration of approval of first reading of revised Board Policy 3515.3 and Administrative Regulation 3515.3, District Police Security Department. I move to approve this item. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Number 13, consideration of approval of first reading of revised Board Policy and Administrative Regulations 4118 and 4218, dismissal, suspension, disciplinary actions. I move to approve this item. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. 14, consideration of approval of first reading of revised board policies 4119.1, 4219.1, 4319.1, civil and legal rights. I move to approve this item. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. 15, consideration of approval of first reading of revised board policies 4140, 4240, 4340, bargaining units. I move to approve this item. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. 16, consideration of approval of first reading of revised board policy 4216, probationary permanent status. I move to approve this item. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. 17, consideration of approval of first reading of revised administrative regulations 4161.2, 4261.2, and 4361.2, personal leaves. I move to approve this item. Is there a second?
I'll second that. Sorry.
Mr. Segrist, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. 18, consideration of approval of first reading of revised administrative regulations 4161.5, 4261.5, and 4361.5, military leave. I move to approve this item. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Number 19, consideration of approval of first reading of revised board policy 6164.2, guidance counseling services. I move to approve this item. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. 20, consideration of approval of first reading of revised board policy and administrative regulation 6158, independent study. I move to approve this item. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. 21, consideration of approval of first reading of revised board policy 7110, facilities master plan. I move to approve this item. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Cobian. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 22, consideration of approval of first reading of revised board policy 7150 and administrative regulation 7150, site selection and development. I move to approve this item. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Lastly, consideration of approval of first reading of revised board bylaw 9100 organization. I move to approve this item. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you, fellow board members.
Thank you.
New laws were passed.
And now moving on to our discussion session, beginning with our cabinet reports.
Thank
Dr.
you,
Garcia.
President Rivas. As we're getting ready to transition, we have a wonderful presentation for you this evening, but I do want to acknowledge the time and effort that it takes to stay current with our board policies. I know that as board members, you play very distinctive roles as part of the work that you do in this organization, and setting the policies and setting the vision and the direction for the district is really key. And so I thank you because I know that it's not easy reading. It's not like reading a novel before you go to bed. So thank you very much for all that effort. We have a wonderful presentation for you this evening. I'm just gonna, Mr. Herrera has the clicker, so he's gonna keep us all in check. A couple of items that I want to highlight for you this evening. We did have the opportunity, obviously, there's a picture to celebrate our Teacher of the Year, so we'll talk a little bit about that. Mr. Herrera has some wonderful updates. Dr. Pinedo will speak about some of the wonderful things that we're doing with our parents and vaccines. And I'm glad that Ms. Davila is still here, because a lot of it is she's leading that work. And then Mr. Sollenbach will share some personnel updates, including a little bit about the student forgiveness loans. That is, I think there was an announcement by the White House made today, so very timely and relevant.
Different one, but yes.
Yes. And lastly, I'll be sharing some of the updates of wonderful events and activities happening throughout the district.
All right, thank you.
Take it away, Mr. Herrera.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. So just an update on our meal service program. As we continue to expand our offerings in after-school programs, before-school programs, on the weekends, whether it's a Saturday or Sunday event, our food services program is doing a wonderful job to make sure that every opportunity that we have kids on campus, or maybe if they're off campus, in the example, we're busing kids over to Whittier Narrows area for some golf lessons, we're providing them with feeding opportunities, right? So even when they're not in our district, right, we're partnering with the high school district and offering some Saturday classes via the Migrant Ed program. So we reached out to CDE, and they allowed us a special waiver to provide breakfast and lunch for all students who participate, regardless of the home district, right? So whenever there's an opportunity to feed the community, we jump at that, right? And there's a listing there of all the snack offerings and supper offerings that we offer for the after-school clubs, whether it's on a typical school day or on a weekend, right? And also today we had some shortened days, right? Today, tomorrow, Wednesday, and we make sure that every child is still provided a breakfast and a lunch, even if they're only on campus for a few hours. Something exciting too that we're doing with our parent meetings is a lot of our schools have coffee with the principal, or you name it, whatever type of event they're calling it. We're now starting to cater those events, right, with our food service program, so that the parents have an opportunity to experience the same meals that their students do, right? So that's pretty exciting. We did our first one at Columbia, and it was well received. This month, we also launched our Lunchbox Buddy program, just educating parents about if their kids show up to campus or they send their kids with their own lunch, they can still go through a lunch line, and they can still pick up a fruit or vegetable, protein, milk, whatever it is that they want to pick up from the lunch line. And there's a few weeks ago, I want to say 2 weeks ago, we launched that Doritos taco salad supper item. So that was a big hit with our students that participate in our after-school program. And so not so good news, right, is the economic and fiscal update, right? So the economy is in a very interesting point right now. Unemployment is very low. However, the economy is still running hot. And so we see it with inflation and CPI increases. So the Federal Reserve is trying to thread the needle so that there's a soft landing without causing a recession. But it's looking more and more likely as if we will be entering 2023 in some sort of economic recession. We're hoping it's a mild recession, and it's not too bad of a recession, but that's what it's looking like. As we look at the state of California and what that means for funding here, so it's been through the first 4 months of the fiscal year, the state of California has actually going back to June, because when they adopt the budget, they're still projecting the month of June. So if you look at June, July, August, and September, we're $3.5 billion under revenue projections, right? So the adopted budget that was signed by Governor Newsom in June, those projections that they were using, they're already $4 billion under revenue receipts. So we're monitoring that closely to see if there's a impact on the school budget. We hope that there's no potential risk to funds that they've allocated already in the current fiscal year, but we'll have a better picture of that in January when Governor Newsom comes out with a proposal for, or whoever the governor is in January comes out with a proposal for the 2023-24 budget. And then so goes the stock market, so goes school funding, unfortunately, because the way we get funded in schools here in California, we rely heavily on tax revenues. The top 1% generate 50% of tax revenues in California. So far this calendar year, stock market is down 20%. So we're hoping that things turn around and we don't see a continued negative trend, because that won't bode too well for school funding. On a bit of better news as it relates to funding, we were approved for another round of emergency connectivity grant funds. We got approved last year for a few $1 million, and we bought a lot of Chromebooks for our students and staff devices for our teaching staff. So we were approved for another $1.6 million to purchase another 100 staff laptops, 2,500 more touchscreen Chromebooks, 500 hotspots, and most importantly, we were able to cover the monthly internet service fee on 2,500 existing hotspots for the next 12 months that we have and that we've already have purchased. We also were pleased to hear from the CDE. They let us know recently that Durfee and Potrero School qualify for a special literacy coach and reading specialist grant. So it's a few $100,000 earmarked specifically for those two schools. And we'll be bringing back a spending plan and reporting template to the board at an upcoming meeting. We continue with our professional development with our classified staff, maintenance, grounds, and custodial staff. We're provided with some workplace safety training. Recently, our warehouse staff was retrained on forklift best practices, and our nutrition services staff trained on food allergy training. At the upcoming November board meeting, you'll hear more information regarding our upcoming bond issuance, but I just wanted to share some information with y'all. We have a debt that we need to repay by April of 2023. So in the coming months, we will be going to market to take out roughly about $16 million of bond proceeds. The first $7 million will go to repay the loan that we took out through our bond funds to build this professional development center. And we're thinking another $9 to $10 million of new bond issuances of proceeds that we can access. So we will bring more information back, a resolution to the November board meeting, along with the brief presentation to talk more about our bond program. And we'll make sure that we have the funds ready to go when we finalize the master plan, and we can mobilize those funds into action.
I'm very pleased to present some of the wonderful things that we have going on that will support our teachers and some opportunities for our parents and our students as well. This week, actually, these next 3 days, we have our early out days, and that time right now is being utilized by our teachers to really do some intentional instructional planning around our initiatives in literacy and math and our new science adoption. We are pleased to partner with Alamani Union High School District to provide, with the adult school to provide ESL classes, and those have begun at various sites, including the Jeff Seymour Family Center. And this Saturday, in partnership again with the Alamani Union High School District, we have parents and students who will be attending the College and Career Family Conference at Pacific Palms, and they will be doing some career planning, some college planning, learning about A through G requirements, and all things to prepare for college. And we provide transportation for that as well. We have just, we will be closing up our BAS administration, and that data is utilized to help develop groups for our counselors, to identify areas of need for our site counselors to address, with either small groups or going throughout and providing support for teachers or lessons for students. And then we are pleased to have a vaccine clinic and family movie night on the 26th at the Jeff Seymour Family Center that was organized by Christina Davila, as well as a blood drive on the 24th from 2 to 7. We also have a variety of parent workshops that are taking place, starting tomorrow with our Google training for parents. They will receive 10 sessions. Special education workshops for understanding the process for special education, a workshop by our BCBA, Ms. Schoonover, in redirecting challenging behaviors, and then a workshop by our counselors in how to support students with inattention and hyperactivity, as well as a workshop by our community liaisons to help parents to prepare for parent conferences.
I get to control the
Get to control the clicker.
Man, which way do I go?
To the right.
There, look at that. The little things in life that we get excited about, right? Controlling the clicker. So, wanted to continue our monthly updates in regards to our COVID protocols as we continue to see a decline in cases. We also are reminded that the potential and most likely possibility of a surge in the coming winter time. And so with that, we have gotten into a partnership with Los Angeles County Office of Ed, Los Angeles County Department of Public Health, and then through Heluna Health to ensure that we continue to receive over-the-counter tests, which then we will provide to our families. So our Thanksgiving break, we'll make sure that all of our students and all of our staff members have a test that go home with them, along with making sure that we have a good supply for our upcoming winter breaks as well. But then also to just making sure that we have our supply for our day-to-day testing as needed. And I'm pleased to share that we actually do have a great supply here, just to us being proactive, from last year through the summer and then currently. Also, as I mentioned, our COVID cases across the county and then along with our district seem to have stabilized and gone down. Our regulations still require that we conduct our contact tracing, and we still conduct our individualized contact tracing, which is we're using our 6 feet close contact rule, as opposed to the group tracing, which I think every other district out there is using. We still believe it's the best approach. It allows us to communicate directly with our staff and our families and provide them the information that they need rather than just sending it out through just electronic communication. We're still required to notify based on certain requirements in regards to an outbreak, and that would be 3 cases that are linked. So health department is still involved in regards to all of our contacts. And then there's a quick snapshot up there of our dashboard, which we still use. We updated it probably every other day. And on that day, you can see on the 13th, we had 6 cases reported that day. But district-wide with those 6 cases, we still only had 10 cases 10 active cases within the district. So besides COVID, personnel actually does personnel type things sometimes. And so with that, we have our credential assignment monitoring. This is something that traditionally, prior to probably 2 years ago, was done every 4 years. Because it was done pretty much, by submitting documents to the Los Angeles County Los Angeles County Office of Education. But in the last couple of years, it's gone electronic, which means annually then every district is required to submit, and they actually are reviewed for their assignments. And so what this does is it takes a look at all of your teachers in regards to the credential they hold and matches or looks at it as compared to the positions in which we have them assigned to. And so usually it's pretty straightforward, but where it becomes a little more technical is within our special education department, because you have some of our classes which are non-CAT classes, which we have a teacher who is a mild to moderate credential, but they have a multitude of students in their class with various identified disabilities or their initial disability. And so what we have to show is how not only are we meeting those initial disability needs, but also how we are meeting their other obligations through their IEP. And so that would be the making sure that the people that are giving them their counseling services are credentialed counselors, the people doing their speech are actual speech and language, and so on. So it goes beyond just an initial assignment. And so that takes a little more time, but I'm pleased to share that we did complete our 2021-22 assignment monitoring process. And so we are getting ready for our 22-23, which is our current year, which will be in the spring. And then, as Dr. Garcia alluded to, there's various loan forgiveness types of programs out there for those that are trying to pay off their student loans. The initial ones were the employee loan forgiveness, which was either the teacher loan forgiveness, which is the more common one, and then came about the public service loan forgiveness. And so if you applied for one or the other, you might get accepted. You can't receive both of them. But the teacher loan forgiveness is probably the more popular of the two, and it can qualify someone for up to $17,500 annually. And what it looks at is what area they're actually working in, and with a priority on your math, science, and special education credentialed teachers. The other one is your public service loan forgiveness. And so based on someone who has made 120 qualifying payments and that they've worked at least 30 hours a week, if they are accepted, it actually pays off the remainder of their loan, which is a nice loan forgiveness program, but not as popular, and again, a little more difficult. So we see more of our employees actually trying for the loan forgiveness because it's almost a guarantee that they can get that, if they qualify based on their time frame of work. The new one is the federal student loan debt relief, which actually the site to submit your information went active today. And then it provides eligible borrowers, full or partial discharge of their loans, up to $20,000 if they're on a federal Pell Grant, and up to $10,000 if they're a non-Pell Grant. And so a lot of wonderful opportunities for our teachers to have some of their debt paid off, whether it's through a loan debt relief or through a forgiveness program.
All right. And are there any questions? We'll just continue plugging in. Okay. Don't want this to turn into this presentation, but I know what it is, but I just really want it to be an opportunity for us to share updates. And if you have any questions, please let us know. So I get to share a lot of the fun stuff, not that COVID tests and loan forgiveness isn't fun, but one of the things that we've been doing as we think about EMCSD 2.0 is thinking about, how do we share our how do we revamp or rebrand, some of the things that we're doing to share with our school community and just give it that 2022 feel? And so we're looking at all of our logos, and we're, making some changes. You got to see Columbia's logo. It has the addition of the 100-year celebration. And so Cortada said, we're next. And so here is history of Cortada. As you can see, the one on the far left is their logo forever and ever. It's just stock clip art. And then we transformed it into that beautiful stallion there. It's a colt, I'm just not a stallion, gold and blue. And here's an update to, the process. And the one on the far left here, the big one, big square, that's the final logo for Cortada School. So as you can see, there are the different options and different colors. The colt looks like he's ready to read a really good, intense book. And we're excited to make this logo really come to life there on the Cortada campus. So we're going to be revisiting our logos throughout the district, and there's some opportunity for us to have conversations about making some changes as well. All right, so a couple of events that I think some of you have already pointed out, and we know that the Great Shakeout is here. We'll be participating this Thursday. We have let our school community know that, for just a bit, our front offices will be closed because everybody will be participating. And then, of course, the Children's Day Parade. I know several of you have referenced it. We're really excited to see our little students from all ages really walk down Tyler and then showcase all of the things that are happening at the school sites. And of course, there's that wonderful Harvest Carnival. And then lastly, I wanted to share that, this is a really wonderful event that Rio Hondo started many years ago. It's hard to believe that it's the 8th annual, but it's a 8th annual astronomy night started by a teacher there, Mrs. Elliott, and her love of astronomy, and it's turned into quite an event. And so they are making it an open event to the community to come in, take a look at telescopes, and get to see what's happening out there. And I know there's a lot of excitement with space programs right now, so really want to make sure that as we think about what EMCSD 2.0 is, that, we're also encouraging our kids to think, outside of our planet and really think about, just how wonderful the solar system is and all the possibilities for exploration. And then there is the flyer there, all the events that are happening at the Jeff Seymour Family Center in terms of wellness with movies. I think the next one is Hocus Pocus, if I'm not mistaken, which is one of my all-time favorites for Halloween. But definitely, if you haven't had a chance to stop on by, consider doing so. And please make this information accessible to the community. This is not just for El Monte City families, but really open to the community at large to provide a resource, especially to just follow up on what Mr. Sollenbach said about this winter surge that the Department of Public Health is really talking about now. We want to make sure that our families are safe. I also want to invite you to the Dia de los Muertos event that will be taking place on November 2nd at Durfee School. So Durfee is opening up this event to the community. It'll be in the evening. I believe it is 5 to 7 p.m. Thank you. 5 to 7 p.m. at Durfee School. And we'll definitely be publicizing some more information in the coming days. And they're inviting all of the school community to create altars. And they're inviting the community to come in and visit some of those altars, to share some cultural experiences, to really make some cultural connections amongst the different cultures in our community. The Durfee PTA will be selling food, there will be live music, and it'll just be a wonderful celebration. So definitely an opportunity to add something cultural to your calendar. And then back to Rio Hondo, Veterans Day at Rio Hondo has become another just really strong tradition. We're really looking to expand this celebration at different sites, but Rio Hondo's definitely been doing this so well for many, many years. And so, Mr. Segrist, you always have an open invitation to be there so we can recognize your service. And definitely we invite veterans from the community to be there so that we can thank them firsthand. But the Veterans Day Assembly at Rio Hondo is fantastic, and we'll share more information with you as well leading up to that event. And lastly, I'm so glad that you mentioned Rio Hondo College. We had the opportunity to meet with the new president, Dr. Marilyn Flores, last week. As soon as she left, we said, gosh, we should have taken a picture with her. So we did the next best thing. We pulled her picture from the internet, and we added it here to our slide. Dr. Flores shared lots of wonderful experiences that she has had in making connections with K-12 systems, understanding that the pathway begins early on, and the stronger the pathway, the better the outcomes for kids and community, and obviously for community colleges. So we took copious notes. They took copious notes. We talked about the things that we're focusing on, some of our initiatives. They shared with us the things that they're hoping to accomplish. And we're setting up next steps because I have to tell you, the meeting was larger than all of us in the room together. So just know that the possibilities are endless, and she has the spirit of collaboration. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful meeting with her. And that is our update for this evening.
Mrs. Cobian, I feel like you want to ask a question.
No,
Oh,
I'm
Okay.
I'm good. Thank you. It was a good presentation.
I have a question.
Thank you, Mr. Segrist.
There were so many events up there. Are they on the calendar for the district? So, okay, thank you.
We will make sure that they're on the board calendar, just so that you know, because you're absolutely right. And I think, Mrs. Cobian, you mentioned earlier the Senator Rubio's event. We've invited all of our 7th and 8th grade girls to also participate. So just lots of great things happening. And there's a little bit for everyone, right? There's for the little kids, for our parents, for the older kids, for community. So good stuff.
And then I want to add too, because, right, there's, our calendar's getting filled up, but also on, this Saturday, who's hosting it? They're having another, Muertos on Main as well.
Oh, this,
That same, so.
okay.
At the same time, the Children's Day Parade is happening in Fall Festival. At the same time on Main Street, they're having a Muertos on Main, and that's actually 11 to 4, and then a 6 to 10 p.m. night concert.
Thank you for sharing that.
Any others? Thank you. Well, this was a wonderful presentation. Thank you. Again, I'm very visual, and I really appreciate all of the work that goes into putting everything together. This was amazing. So thank you again for the cabinet report and for the presentation. Continuing and moving on to our future discussion items. Any? Okay. None at this point. Okay. Moving on to our board meeting access, and I know that this was something that was brought up. Mr. Segrist, you had some questions in terms of this particular item. Please. The floor is yours.
For future discussion, I'd like to have us discuss bringing the spelling bee back to the district. I have a special reason for that. It was my neighbor who was a Vietnamese immigrant, little Vivian, that won 6th grade, the whole district for spelling bee. And I think it's a great opportunity for our children to participate. Another one is, I think we should promote affordable housing to try to keep people in our community. The Mac Ortiz Plaza right down on Valley and Center, there's still openings there. A single apartment for 1 or 2 people is $800 a month, and the utilities are paid. And also the big complex over by the bus station, that can be affordable. That's affordable housing too. And maybe we should promote employment for our families, because there are so many jobs. Everywhere I go now, it's help wanted, help wanted. If you're familiar with Art's Burgers, he has to close on Tuesday because he can't get anybody to work there. So it's a wonderful time if you want to get a job somewhere. The final thing I'd like us to discuss, let's invite the presidents of the 2 community colleges, Dr. Erica Enrijones to come here, and Dr. Marilyn Flores from Rio Hondo. I would like to have them bring with them the brochures and programs that too many people don't know about. Did you know that there's a bachelor's in science for automotive technology at Rio Hondo? I need to get flyers from up there and push them in the community. There's also the RISE program and CORE. RISE at Rio Hondo, CORE at PCC. It's for convicted felons. They will give them 2 years of education for free, counseling, and even help them clean up their record. It's a second chance. I know Ms. Cobia knows about those programs. They're wonderful. So anyway, I would like us to consider doing that. Thank you.
Okay, so maybe for future discussion items, but particularly as we're now focusing on board meeting access, this is something that you brought up, and that's why we wanted to also have a discussion on this particular item. Anything you would like to add on this, Mr. Segrist?
I'm fine.
On board meeting access, having access to our board meetings?
I'd like us to do
Okay.
the online again, the streaming.
Live
Because they're
stream?
doing it at the high school board. They're also doing it at the city. PCC does it, Rio Hondo. We're missing input from the public out there. They need to see our meetings, access, doing streaming online again. I think we really should do it.
And Dr.
Getting
Garcia,
requests for that.
and please correct me if I'm wrong, but we do have a YouTube channel, right? So everything is recorded, and so this is accessible to our community after the meeting, correct?
Right. The meetings are recorded, and they are, you are able to access the meetings. And the visual that our community gets to see is what you see here before you on the big screen. So it'll be the agenda. If we do any presentations, those get uploaded, or those are part of the presentation, and that's what the community gets to see.
Okay.
Fine.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Segrist, for that. Anyone else wants to comment or have questions about this?
I'll just
Mrs.
share a
Rivas.
comment that I received from somebody from EMETA. Suggested that we continue to have public comments accessible through the Google form, the way that we were doing before. I believe that we've stopped using the Google form for public comments because we have actual meetings in the room. But that was one suggestion that I heard from somebody from EMETA. I think the idea was some of the leaders with families want to go home, but want to be able to share some comments in that way.
Very good suggestion. Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Rivas. Okay, anyone else?
I guess maybe I'll just say to that,
Mrs. Cobian.
maybe we could look at that in terms of our written communication and clarify, because it's essentially a written communication.
Yeah, so
This-
written communication can come forth, and then it's shared with the board members. So that would be the equivalent. But there's some opportunities to look at this and see how we can, what are the options? What are things that we can do differently to incorporate different, to bring more voices to that public comment section?
I like that idea as well, to address the written comments. I would say my only concern would be making sure that it's not anonymous, right? That the individuals just need to put like their name or something like that to kind of verify that way. We can keep the written comments just transparent.
I think that's a good point, because I think sometimes when we have people come and address the board, there is an opportunity for us to ask follow-up questions, and we want to make sure that if there's some questions or concerns that are lingering, that they are addressed, and so I think that's really important.
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay, well, thank you so much. And now we can move on with, adjourning our meeting today. So thank you all of you who attended, and of course those who are going to listen to the recording after. Thank you very much. And to all, have a wonderful and lovely rest of your evening. We adjourn our meeting at 7:41.
Well done.
Thank you.